my dear crafters. Today I'm going to teach you another tutorial on ScanNCut and how to use your machine to its best ability. So I have two cards here I want to show you. Very cute. You know me and my cards. I love them. I get really attached to my cards. I don't know if it happens to you. So here's one. Same kind of idea for this one here with my ballerinas. If you follow my channel, you know I love them. I'm always finding a new way to use ballerinas and get like, I don't know, I have hundreds of stamps on ballerinas. But so what are you going to learn today? You're going to learn how to prepare these panels with the circles that are perfectly aligned. It might look like I have some circles, like glued on the next here, but that's not how I did this. Let me just focus here. What you're going to learn is on Canvas Workspace, I'm going to teach you how to create these panels here. They are perfectly aligned, and the beauty of it is, of course, if you want to make like a set, then you can cut as many as you want. You just keep changing the paper. You can fit 4 of these on a 12 by 12. So it's like 4 every time. And that's the beauty of ScanNCut. You can just mass produce things. And I know that if you have, I have a few punches, but you never have all the sizes you need. And if you want to vary, it's always hard. And it's hard to kind of place it perfectly aligned like that. So what I'm going to teach you is how to create these panels on the different sizes that you need so that when you glue them together, they are perfectly aligned like this. And of course, after that, you have a whole bunch of circles that you don't know what to do with. And what I do is I use all my scraps, guys. I try to not throw away paper. So you can always create with the leftover. You can create a panel to use it just as is and just add some image here, or maybe just a sentiment, a bold sentiment here. But the other way you can do it, I mean, it's ready to just add another panel like this, an image, a sentiment, and you have another card. So just giving you ideas again to use your scraps. So when you're left with all those circles, use them. Okay, so let's go to the tutorial. It's quite simple. It's like 2 or 3 steps for each of these panels, but then you can just save the file, send it to your ScanNCut. You can save it on the machine, and it's going to be there forever. And of course, it's not just circles. I will show you how to use some other kind of images too. Okay, this one is on circles, but I'll give you ideas when we are on the computer, and that's where we're going now, on how to even vary the image here. But the other thing that I want to show you is that, let me just show you the side of the panels here. You can either glue, and we're going to assemble one at the end, so you can either use some foam, you can use foam tape to give it some dimension like this, or this one I just actually glued the first and the second. So if you look at the panels here, I glued these two together with nothing between them, and then on this one I just used some foam so that it gives some dimension. It looks really cute, and it allows you to introduce elements on the side like this. So it's really nice. So, okay, let's go to the computer now. I'll teach you how to prepare these panels and save them and send them to your ScanNCut. And then we'll go to the machine, and that'll be it. And then at the end, I will assemble a new card like this one. Okay? So let's go have some fun. So here we are on Canvas Workspace. Just so you know, I use the downloaded version. This is what we're going to end up with right here, these 3 panels. And the only difference is, of course, to get the tunnel effect and to get those dimensions in different layers, you're going to have this circle here smaller and smaller, and you can just keep going as depending on how many layers you want. It's quite simple. It just takes 2 or 3 steps for each layer. Just so you know, that's what it's going to look like. So let's begin. And I'm going to show you from the beginning now. Well, first thing is bring a square in, but of course it's not going to be a square because we're doing a card. And I'm going to do an A2 card, which is 4¼ by 5½. So in order to have that panel, what I'm going to do is you come here to the size. If it's clicked, maintain aspect ratio. Always be sure to unclick it. Otherwise, when you click, everything changes together. You don't want that because you don't want a square, you want a rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I want the width 4 inches and the height 5¼ So that will give a 1/4 inch, just like an outline, depending on the size of the card that you use. But for this one, the A2, it's just going to be like a 1/4 inch on all sides. Okay, so that's the size of the panel. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a circle right here. Let me just zoom in a little bit so that you see what I'm doing. So we're going to find, every time I'm recording there is a plane. It's amazing. They always know. We're going to add a circle. The first circle, you're going to just eyeball it with the size that you want because it's really personal. So I think this is a good size for the first. So just a little bit of a border here and here. And I always add color, guys, because it makes it easier for you to see what you're doing. So let's add a color here and here. So that's good contrast. Okay, next thing you're going to do is make sure that this is centered here. So you're going to select both the rectangle and the circle, and you come in here to align objects, and you're just going to make sure that it's centered. See, it moved a little bit. And now you choose, I don't, we usually center both like this, but that's not the case because that's not where we want the circle to be, right? So what I do is I just center it vertically, no, horizontally, and then I click on it and I just use my keys, my arrow keys, and I go up to where I want it to be. I think that's a good position right there. Okay, so that's the first one. Here is what you're always going to do. We're going to copy and paste both the panel and the circle because we're going to need both of them, and you see why. So every time you finish one, you're going to copy those, okay? The panel is the same, so you can copy just 3 times. Oh, sorry, let me click on the panel. Yeah, the panel, you're going to need 3. I will just change the color and we'll do that later. So the last thing you're going to do is you're going to select both the circle and the panel, and you go in here to process overlap, and we're going to click on the third option, which is to remove overlap. But let me teach you something. This is a very good tip because I've made this mistake many times. Before you do that, you want to make sure that the circle is in front in terms of layering, is in front of the panel, because otherwise the panel will cut the circle and nothing will happen. There will be no space here. So here's what you do. There are 2 ways of doing this. How do you know where this is, if it's in front or not? One of the ways that you can do that is you go here to see these layers here. If you just leave your mouse there, you see that it's layers. And when you look at this, after you have a whole bunch of images here, it gets a little bit confusing, but in this case it's not, because see the blue outline here, the highlight, the blue highlight, it means that that's the one. So as you can see, it is just to know which one is this, you click on it and you see here. If it's above it, it's in front. If it's below, then it would be on the background. So this is right. If I want to cut through, this has to be in front of the yellow. And the way that you move, let's say if you wanted the other way around, if you wanted this in front of the blue, you would just hold and pull it up. See? Now it's in front and you can't see the blue anymore. So we're going to do it again, just so, because that's the way it should be. So again, we're going to select both, go back here to edit, and go down to process overlap, the third option. And what is the third option? It's called remove overlap. So once you do that, you go, well, nothing happened. Well, it actually did, because if you move the circle, you have your panel ready. And why did I multiply this? Why did I have two options? Because the next one, as you remember from the cards that I showed you, this one has to be smaller. So the way to do that is you click here and then you go offset right here at the bottom on edit. You see offset here, and we're going to apply an offset of 30. I already played around with this. You can offset more or less. It depends, and depends on how thick you want those layers. But I already played with it, so I know the 30 is good. Inward, because you want it smaller. You don't want to, if you click on outward, it's going to be bigger, right? That's outward. We use that when we want, for example, when you have a stamped image and you're going to cut, the offset is great for that. But anyway, so inward 30, that's fine. Round, yes, not bevel. I think that's how you say that. Selected original line, leave as is. You don't want anything to happen there. Well, actually, I can actually delete it. In this case, I don't want both circles. I just want the one that is just look at the image here, and the difference is one will keep the original circle there and the other one will delete it. We don't need the original anymore. We're just gonna go okay. See, we have a smaller circle, and that's exactly what we needed. Again, I'm going to add color because it makes it easier, and I want everything to have a different color, so it makes it easy for you to see. What do we do next? We need to do, and this is the challenge, and I'll show you the easiest way to know. I mean, how can I place this perfectly in the center here, right? So here's the way to do that. You want this panel and this to be together and aligned, perfectly centered. So you're going to click on these two. This is not picking up the circle here. It looks like it, but it isn't. You're going to click on, here on edit, and you are going to align it perfectly like that. So that's good. One is behind the other, right? And again, you're going to just move this here. You can either eyeball it or you click on the big panel and the circle, and again you're going to align, but just the center here, okay, to make sure that it's centered. It looks perfect right now, but let's say it could be up like that and still centered, right? So you would just move it, and the really eyeballing it, you can tell when it's perfect. Right there is good. So that's where you want it to be. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to move this away from here. You're just going to move this away from here because you don't need this panel anymore. That was just to help you center the circle. And you're going to do the same thing you did here. It's always the same. You're going to click on both, and you're going to click on process overlap, remove overlap, and there you go. See, you have the second one. We're going to do the third one. So it's easy. It's very easy after you get the gist of it. So we have the third panel here. Let's add another color just to make it easy to identify them. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to get this one, and we're going to align them perfectly here and here. So they're right one behind the other, right? It's perfectly aligned. Let me just move the yellow. We're going to do the same thing. Which size is it? We're going to offset it. And we're going to do the same spacing because then it will be even and you don't have to even do anything else. Again, same thing, round, delete, click on it. We have the smaller one again. Let's give it a color. That one is good. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to align with this. Erase these color things. And just to make sure that it's aligned right there. Oops, sorry. So we're going to move it here. I eyeball it because, I don't know, I kind of trust myself. But you don't have to do that. You can just align this and this in the middle, right there. See, it didn't even move, so it was kind of good. And now you just make sure that you go up and down until you think it's perfect. I think it's good now. Again, we're going to move this out of here because we don't need that anymore. Again, we're going to process, overlap, remove. You erase that and you have all 3 layers. And if you wanted a 4th one, you do the same. You would use that circle that I just erased, you would offset it, and then you would align it and cut. Very, very easy. That's all you do, guys. It's not complicated at all. And just so you know, I used a circle, but you can use anything really. You can use this, could be really cute with this too, and always use offset. Okay, I have made the mistake of just making it smaller like this. I would make one, for example, like this color. I said, oh, I'm just gonna copy and paste and make it a little bit smaller. It does not align as it does if you do the offset. For whatever reason, it distorts the image, and once you put it together, it doesn't look as great. This one is looking good, but there's some, depending on the type of image, if you just make it smaller, it doesn't align as well. I don't know why, but with this one is okay. But if you want to try and you need to do layers and smaller and smaller and smaller and make sure that they're going to align well and be perfectly centered, I always use the offset option. Another one that looks really good is, you can use any of these really. There's so many good options, but I love this one. This one looks very nice for a panel. This other one here too, let me show you. This one is great for panel, and you just use, it's the same process. You're going to create the panel, you're going to choose the first one, cut it, and then you're going to just always use and multiply the image that you're using here. In our case, it was circle, and then you're going to cut it again, offset it, cut it again, and use the last size that you cut and that you created as a base, just so you know if it's aligned. Okay, and that's it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to send this to the machine, and I'm going to export and transfer by Wi-Fi, and then we're going to ScanNCut now. Once it says it's done, I'll go to ScanNCut and just show you how to cut it, and then after that stick to the end because I will show you how to assemble the card. Okay, so here on ScanNCut, what we're going to do is first retrieve the data because we sent it through Wi-Fi, and that's the option that I want. Here it is. It's perfect. It's very simple, very straightforward. All you're going to do is go, yes, okay, that's good enough. I already have my mat. I already uploaded my mat. So click on cut, and it should be around 1 minute, and just wait for it because it's just rectangles and circles, so that's pretty fast. Yeah, 1 minute, and I will show you when the machine has done its job. So now that ScanNCut has done its magic, I have a few panels here. What I did was I used 3 different papers, and I cut all the layers in all these colors here, and that's how I made this card. And that's a good thing because you can just do with a 12 by 12 paper, for example, you can get 4. So 4 cards, and you just choose the layers that you want, the colors that you want. And the way you assemble it is I add a few elements here, so depending on the scenery and what you want to add to it. So this one I added a lot of like a butterfly, flower, a lot of greenery here. So it will depend on the kind of the scenery that you want. So, and what I do is I usually just always do this. I put them together like that just to know where I should add the elements and how they're going to show, because basically apart from this layer here, which is the front panel, you will only see like a little bit of the circle. Let me just show you here. See, so really you should never glue any elements on the these two layers here outside of this area because you would not see it. So you just decide. This is I actually decided to make a card for a friend of mine. She sews, that's her craft. So what I did was I just stamped this image and I colored it, and that's going to be my focal point. So now what to do is, and let me show you, as I told you on this card here, I actually added more foam, and it it is thicker than the other one. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little bit thicker because I added foam to 2 layers. But I decided that when I, trial and error, I thought that it would be better to just glue these two together with no dimension. Just glue these 2 layers here together, and then the last one I added foam. That's what I do. You can use double-sided foam tape, of course, but I actually prefer to always use foam because you don't get like the holes. If you put double-sided tape, you put it here, maybe a little bit here, and I think this is more even when you use foam. So I don't know, I just think it looks better. And this is what it looks like right now. And what I usually do is I just get a blank white paper as a base because it adds more contrast too. See, because I cut this a little bit smaller than the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Just added, in this case here, I had this little, I just cut a little bit of, this is a die that I have. It kind of looks like a button. That's why I had some of those. And I have this big button here too that I cut. And I just added a little bit of those. A little bit of hearts too, because as you see here, you have little hearts. So I just added a few hearts. It's very simple. This one is a very simple card. And then I just added smile here. And here you are, just so you see. I just cut 2, and then you kind of offset it a little bit to give it a little bit of, it looks like a shade in an offset line, like that. That's what I did with this. So now I'm just going to glue it. So this is what you do. I'm going to glue this one here first. I have my tacky glue. So again, I didn't add any foam, so make it simple, and it doesn't get as bulky too. My glue is a little bit old, I think, so it's kind of weird. I don't, you guys know what my favorite glue is, but that one is gone. I don't have any more left. It's the Tombow Dry. So you glue these 2 pieces together. The best way is to just kind of hold them like this, and they will be perfectly aligned. See, now just to make sure that the glue is in the right place. And the reason why I use liquid glue is because you have some wiggle space before it totally dries. So that one is good. Let's add the other layer, and I actually I think I'm just going to add this first. So let's glue this layer here. I'm telling you, I don't know what's wrong with this glue, but it's just so blotchy. It's good enough, but it's a very good glue. I really like this tacky glue. No complaints there. Make sure you don't get a lot. So place the card. I like to cut it a little bit smaller because it adds one more layer to the card, and I just like the contrast of the blue with the white. So as a base, I used white in all of them. See, I don't know, I like to have this kind of outline here. Looks nice. Let's add this. I also added a little bit of foam here, just to give it a pop. It will add more dimension to the focal point. That's a lot of glue right there. I'm going to send this to a friend of mine who loves to sew. I used to sew a lot. Now I just can't do it anymore. You know how crafters are, right? We go through phases. At least I do. I like to use my stamping, what do you call this? Oh, stamping whatever. Block, acrylic block, that's what it is. So that looks good. This is the last layer, look at that. So let's just add, and I'm kind of having an idea here because since this is a card about sewing, I think I'm going to be brave and just add like a dotted line, stitched line around the circle. Let's see if that's gonna work. You have to be brave because if you make a mistake, you ruin your card basically. So see, a little bit of wiggle room so I don't get the outer layer. And also what you can do, this, when you have these two the same size, all the layers the same size, makes it easy to position it because you can just kind of, you know what I did before. But it does run, you do run the risk of seeing the sides. So what you can do too is just trim the sides a little bit so you don't run that risk. Okay guys, so this is the moment of bravery. Let's see, should I stitch? Because look at this, I have this beautiful Jelly Moonlight number 6. And I actually tried before on this green paper and it looks great. So I think I'm gonna go for it. So let me just zoom in for you guys to see what I'm doing. Oh, I hope it works. It would just make it pop. I think stitching always looks good. I do it a lot on my cards, usually with white though. But I think on this one, it's just perfect to use this color because it goes perfectly with this color here and this color. So you have to be brave because if you screw up, your card is ruined. Okay. See, it helps it. I was going to do the whole thing, but I thought it was a little bit too much. And my last touch will be, I'm going to add some glossy accents to the heart, just to make it a little bit chubby. Almost done. Don't you think it just adds something to it? See, and I think it calls more attention to the focal point. So there you go. There is our card for today. Last but not least, have to be brave too. Let's see if this is working because sometimes it isn't. I didn't try before. I usually try everything before I do my filming. So this is kind of, no, it's not gonna work. That's okay. Just so you know, I'm going to add some glossy accents to this heart. Last but not least, I think we should add a sentiment. And I have one that's kind of perfect here. It says, wishing you lots of fun. Because, you know, when you're crafting and doing your craft, you should always have lots of fun. So I'm just going to add that to the inside. Give it a little bit of time just to dry. There you go. Perfect. So there, wishing you lots of fun. I'm not going to close it out because I don't want to, that's a VersaFine pigment ink. So pigment inks, they do take a while, but there's nothing sharper than VersaFine. For sentiments, that's all I use. So there you go, guys. We have, I'm just going to put this here just so it doesn't close. Let me just zoom out a little bit, and now you can see all the cards that I made with the same technique and using ScanNCut. Oops, there you go. 3 cards, 1 technique. I hope you learned and you had fun, and please enjoy and use what you've learned today. Have fun and let's just craft.